Welcome back to this course on digital system design. In this lecture, we will be discussing BCD counters as well as counters that can be used for generating timing diagrams. We already looked at BCD counters which are asynchronous in nature, or the BCD ripple counter. To recollect, we have to count through the sequence of BCD numbers which range from 0 to 9. So, in the BCD representation, which is an 8421 encoded binary sequence, there are 4 bits. The weightages are 8, 4, 2 and 1, that is 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2 and 2 power 3. And the sequence bit sequence varies from 0000 to 1001, and we would like to count it in increasing order, that is, it is a BCD up counter. So, from the state graph for a BCD counter is 0000 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and then back to 0. And we achieved it using the asynchronous counter based design by deriving the clock for different flip flops as well as the inputs in such a manner that this sequence of counting happens. Basically, what we did it, we started off with a binary counter, mod 16 counter, but only we ensured that after the number 9 is reached, we go back to 0 and we don't proceed to 10. So, to enable that, we looked at the state table and then we set the JK inputs of the different flip flops as well as the clock differently in the case of BCD ripple counter. We could also achieve it using a synchronous counter based design. So, here are two ways of achieving or realizing a BCD counter using a mod 16 synchronous counter, and where we load at an appropriate time the count such that it will go from 9 to 0. So, we can use the synchronous 16-bit counter as a building block and design the BCD counter. So, here we have a counter which is a 4-bit counter, which you have already looked at how a synchronous 4-bit counter can be designed. So, such a unit is being given here, and it has a capability of not only counting up, it can also count load parallel. For example, this is the circuit diagram we talk about. It can count up as well as do a parallel load operations. If we have this kind of a counter, then let us assume that it is first cleared, all the count is 0. So, we have a count control, whenever it is 1, then it counts, otherwise count is disabled. Of course, in this case we permanently keep it 1, and we have a clear signal and clock signal, we don't use it at this point. So, the clock comes all the time. So, it is a 4-bit synchronous counter, up counter. So, it will be counting from 0000 onwards. But now we include a circuitry which looks for the number 9. So, here the number 9 is one where we have the pattern 1001, that is A0 is 1 as well as A3 is 1, and as long as we restrict the count to in between 0 to 9, this is the only count for which A0 and A3 are 1, that is, we don't allow it to go beyond 9. So, it is okay to do a partial decoding, that is, the 9 can be uniquely looked upon only ANDing A3 and A0. So we use this one, and then whenever the number 9 is reached, then we give it as a load control to this counter. So after number 9 occurs, at the end of that clock period, when a clock transition comes, since the load signal is present, instead of counting up, we will be loading 4 bits parallelly into the 4 flip-flops. Now we clear all the flip-flops by giving 0, 0, 0, 0 as the input to be loaded into the flip-flop. So once we reach 9, we load 0, therefore the count is effectively a BCD counting. We can also achieve this in the following manner. We let the count to go from 0 to 9 and even beyond that, but as soon as it touches 10, we immediately clear it in an asynchronous manner. This is very important. While this loading is a synchronous one, so you let 9 to be present for one full clock period, at the end of which, instead of going to 10, we load 0, 0, 0, 0. Whereas this is an asynchronous clear. So you should look for the pattern 10 and not 9. So the pattern 10 occurs when we have 1, 0, 1, 0. That is A3 is 1 as well as A1 is 1. When that occurs, then we clear this counter, and therefore all flip-flops are set to 0. So these are two ways in which we can achieve the BCD counter using a binary counter. We can also design a synchronous BCD counter without using 16 modulo 16 counter as a building block. That is, it is a purely a synchronous design of the BCD counter, just like we did as asynchronous design of a BCD counter. So here what we do is, we are not explicitly showing the diagram for the synchronous BCD counter. It should be very obvious. There are 4 bits, so there are 4 flip-flops. They are all operated in the T mode, that is toggle mode. Because it is a synchronous counter, we give the same clock to all the flip-flops. It doesn't matter whether the flip-flop is positive or negative edge triggered. That much we can easily arrive at. The only thing that we have to do is that, how do we generate or synthesize the T input for the different flip-flops? And how do we do it? By looking at the condition under which for which a T has to be 1. Whenever we want the flip-flop to toggle, we have to set T has to be 1. So this is what. So we can come up with a truth table for the T input for different flip-flops. So we have 4 flip-flops. We designated as Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 and Q8 because they just represents the weightage of the different bits. We could have called it as Q0, Q1, Q2, Q3. Rather we just call it using the weightage because the LSB has a weightage of 1, next to that has a weightage of 2, MSB has a weightage of 8. So the count, the bit pattern taken by these 4 bits to start with are 0, 0, 0, 0, then 1, 2, 3 and so on. When it reaches 9, that is 1, 0, 0, 1, we have to go back to 0. So if you look at the next state for a given present state, for the present state or a present count of 0, the next count or state is 1. For 1 it is 2, for 2 it is 3, and for 8 it is 9, and for 9 it is 0. So we could find out the next state and present state. Then we need to find out what should be the T input for the flip-flops Q1, Q2, Q4 and Q8. So we have these columns, T input of Q1, Q2, Q4 and Q8. In addition, when we complete one BCD counting, that is, when you go from 9 to 0, it means that we have completed one BCD counting. At this point, we should count the next significant BCD digit if it is there in a larger number. So, to enable that, we use an output y which tells when one sequence of 0 to 9 counting is over. We will make use of this output when we design larger counter having different BCD counters as its components. So, coming to these T inputs of different flip-flops, how do we set TQ1? So, when Q1 is equal to 0 in a given state, when Q1 is equal to 0, and in the next state Q1 is equal to 1, it means the flip-flop Q1 has to toggle. To make that happen, TQ1 has to be 1. Similarly, you look at the Q1 bit and the Q1 plus bit, that is the Q1 in the next state. And if they remain the same, T has to be 0. If they differ, T has to be 1. This is how we set the T inputs for different bits. You can see that Q1 has to toggle in all the states. Q1 always changes from 0 to 1. If you look at 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and so on. So, if you effectively do an exclusive OR operation of Q1 and Q1 plus, you get the TQ1. So, it is always 1. So, you don't need to, you know that TQ1 is 1. So, that is one equation which is not written here. Then TQ2 is also can be easily arrived at. We just look at Q2 and Q2 plus. Both are zeros, so you have a 0 here. Here there is a 0, there is a 1, so there is a 1 here, and so on. So, this is how you have filled TQ2. Similarly, TQ4 is filled by looking at these two bits. So, there will be a 0 here, there will be a here if you look at this is 0 and this is 0, there is a 0 and so on. So, that is how you have filled TQ4, and then TQ8 is also filled in this manner. TQ2 is also rather easy to arrive at. One way is to use a K-map based deduction technique and derive the equation for TQ2. We have not shown it here, but we can easily derive it. It looks very similar to Q1. So, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1 is the way Q1 is also changing. But only thing is that here is where it remains same. Okay. So, only that condition has to be taken care of, otherwise it is same as Q1. So, accordingly we can write an equation. Coming to TQ4, instead of going through the K-map, we can just look at it and then write out these are the only two places where there is ones. How do we write a Boolean expression for TQ4? So, if you look at what is unique for this one, when this is 1, Q2 and Q1 are 1. Similarly, in this bit, Q2 and Q1 are 1. And these are the only two bits for which both Q2 and Q1 are 1. So, we can write TQ4 is equal to Q2 and Q1. Similarly, if you look at Q8, which is 1 in both these places, what is the Boolean expression for this corresponding to this row? This row is Q4, Q2, Q1, Q4, Q2, Q1. And for this one, that is the last row, it is Q4, Q1. So, we can write out Q8 as Q4, Q1 plus Q4, Q2, Q1. And Y denotes that one cycle is over. Whenever we touch 9, one BCD cycle is over. So, the unique condition that designates that is Q4, Q1. So, This is how we can arrive at the synchronous BCD counter. Once we have this one, we can synthesize these expressions using gates and connect it. So we are not just showing the diagram. Now it should be easy for you to visualize how the diagram should be. Then before talking about the timing diagram, we will just quickly look at how, if you have two numbers which are BCD encoded numbers, okay, with 3 BCD digits in it, how do we construct a counter based on that? That is, we want the BCD encode numbers, 3 digit BCD encoded numbers are present. We want a counter which will count through that. For example, we want to count from 0, 0, 0. These are all BCD encoded. You can treat it as decimals. 0, 0, 0 to 999 and then go back to 0, 0, 0 and so on. So it is basically a modulo 1000 counter. 0 to 1000. 1000 counts it has to count. After reaching 999, it has to go back to 0, 0, 0. So the first digit goes from 0 to 9, 0 to 9 and so on. So if you use a BCD counter here and give a clock pulse, so it will keep counting from 0 to 9. But you look at the next digit, only when you have counted from 0 to 9, and then when you go back to 0, there will be an overflow from this digit and the next digit has to go. That is, to begin with, it will be 0, 0, 0. Once this 0 is counted all the way back to 9, and when it goes, the next value is 0, 1, 0. That is, this 9 has to go to 0, this 0 has to go to 1. Again from 1, 9, if you go to 2, 0, again when this goes to 0, you have to increment this 1 to 2. Then we will have 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, and after 2, 9, this has to be increased to 3 while this goes back to 0. So the clock pulse for this BCD counter is nothing but the output, Q8 output or even the Y output which we saw earlier, that tells one digit has occurred. This is not actually the Q8, that is basically the 9 has reached. That can be used as a clock for this. So once in 10 counts, this will count once. Similarly, after reaching 099, we have to go to 100. So when this wraps from 9 to 0, this will generate a pulse that can be used as a clock for this. So it will become 100, 100. Then again after reaching 199, there will be a pulse here, it will change it to 200 and so on. So this way we can construct BCD counters with more digits. Okay. Then we will set this also here. Now we talk about the next category of circuits built using counters which are of much use in generating timing diagrams. Two such counters we will look at. One is the ring counter, another is the Johnson's counter. So timing diagrams, timing signals are the one which has got a number of lines, usually called as T lines. Here there are 4 lines, T0, T1, T2, T3. What we want is only one of these lines has to be 1 at any given time, and that 1 has to jump from one line to another line in a particular sequence, and that is what we mean by a timing diagram. And this jump has to take place at the end of every clock period. That is, to begin with, T0 has to be 1, others have to be 0. So we will have a pattern 1 0 0 0. Next, T1 has become 1 while others are 0. Then T2 should become 1, others are 0. Then T3, and then again it goes back to T0. So you can visualize that there is a bit pattern 1 0 0 0. It rotates, that 1 goes through the lines 1 clock at a time. So this is, if you look at, this is the base clock that controls the circuitry. In the first clock period, T0 is 1, all other T2, T3, T1, T2, T3 are all zeros. Okay. In the next clock period, T0 is 1 only during the first clock period. T1 is 1 during the next clock period, and then T3 is 1, and then T2 is 1, and then T3 is 1, and then you go back to T0. So this is how we would like to do it. This is one simple way of realizing it. We have a 4-bit shift register which is initialized to 1 0 0 0, and then we shift right it. So initially we will have this, you call it as T0, T1, T2, T3. Initially you will have 1 0 0 0. After one clock, because we are giving shift right control, this 1 from T0 will go to T1, and then to T2, then the T3, and we circulate it back. This T3 is given back here. As long as this is 0, only a 0 is pushed to T0. The moment T3 becomes 1, then the 1 will get recirculated. So you can visualize that there is it's all zeros excepting 1 in one position, and that 1 goes in this manner, comes back, and then goes in this manner. So this is the one which can give rise to a timing signal. Well, now before we proceed further, what is the utility of this kind of a timing signal? One major utility is that this can be used to control the different steps that takes place in a central processing unit, which forms the heart of a microprocessor. As you would study later in a course called as the computer organization or microprocessor, which is the follow-up course for the digital systems, you would see that a microprocessor is a one which takes elementary instructions and execute those elementary instructions. It has got an arithmetic logic unit which can perform basic addition, subtraction, or arithmetic operations or logical operations. It has got a temporary storage units which are registers. Again, we looked at the registers. The registers are basically some 4-bit or 8 or 16-bit register which we have looked at. One instruction that we typically would like to do is that add the content of 2 registers. We would also have some buses which can move the values between the registers or from register to ALU, ALU to register, and so on. So look at an instruction which is supposed to add the content of 2 registers and load it into a 3rd register. We can split it into a number of sub instructions. That is, if you want to add R1 and R2, register 1 and register 2, and load it into register 3, the steps we have to do it: load the content of register 1 onto the bus, then take the content of the bus into a temporary register connected to the ALU, arithmetic logic unit. Similarly, load the content of R2 into the bus, then move that content of the bus into another temporary register in the ALU, then add these two values of temporary registers, that is effectively you are adding R1 and R2, store it in the third temporary register, and then put that sum into the bus, and then from the bus to the final destination register R3. After that, you should also do other operations, like there will be an instruction pointer which will be pointing to the next instruction to be executed. You increment it to point to the next instructions. Some flags have to be affected and so on. So this is how typically an instruction gets executed. Accordingly, at different clock periods, different control signals have to be given out. Load into a bus, move from bus to temporary register, add output of ALU to a temporary register, affect flag, instrument, increment the program counter and so on. So you will have a series of control signals to be enabled at different points. So for those things, these timing signals are being used. So we saw that shift register can be used for generating the timing diagram. Another way in which it can be done is to use, we need 4 timing signals, T1, T2, T3, T4. To identify which bit has to be 1 at any given time, we need 4 unique bit patterns. By decoding them, we can decide which line has to be 1 at any given time. So to generate 4 unique bit pattern, we can have a 2-bit counter. A 2-bit counter has 4 different count values, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0 and 1, 1. So the output of this counter can be decoded using a 2 to 4 decoder. The output of this decoder, that is 4 lines, can be used to stand for the 4 T lines of the timing signals. So when the count is 0, 0, then this decoder will make T0 to be 1. When the count is 0, 1, then T1 will be 1. When the count is 1, 0, then T2 will be 1. When the count is 1, 1, then T3 will be 1. So we can do this one. Now you can look at what is the complexity of these two circuits. Here we need 4 flip-flops. If we use a master-slave configuration, you can see that you need 2 latches and in addition some AND circuitry to realize that configurations. Okay, one to give a complement clocks between the master and slave, and 2 AND control lines which will feed to the J and K input of this master as well as slave. So that is the level of complexity. You can count the number of gates that are required to realize a T flip-flop. So 4 such things would be required. You can do this exercise. I will just give you a hint. Now look at the complexity of generating the same timing signal using this configuration. Here you need only 2 counters, 2-bit counter, which means 2 flip-flops are enough. Instead of 4 flip-flops, 2 flip-flops can be used to realize 2-bit counter. But you need another circuitry which is a 2 to 4 decoder. A 2 to 4 decoder is a one which has got, basically it takes 2-bit here and perform different combination of AND operation and generate this one. So there will be 4 AND gates here to generate the output of these. Okay. So the complexity gets reduced when it comes to the number of flip-flops, but increases because we need a decoder. If you, instead of 4-bit 4 timing signals, if you go to 16 timing signals, you need 16 flip-flops here. Whereas here only 4-bit counter is enough, 4 flip-flops may be okay. But the decoders now will be 4 to 16 decoders. You need 16 4-input AND gates. Again, if you cannot realize 4 input AND gates, if you only realize in terms of 2 input AND gates, many AND gates would be required here. So you can compare and contrast the complexity in terms of the number of gates that are required between this and this configuration. So we call this as a ring counter because basically the ones, it's like a ring, it keeps revolving. The one single bit is shifted from one flip flop to another. Well, now we have got an interesting design called as the Johnson counter, which strikes a very optimal trade-off between the complexity of the circuit and the number of timing signals that we can generate. Well, if you have 4 flip-flops, we saw that by using it as a shift register, we can generate 4 timing signals. Well, if you say that that is not enough, you are interested in more timing signals, 16, you can use 4 flip-flops as a 4-bit counter and a 4 to 16 decoder and generate 16 timing signals. Well, the decoder is very complex. Now, instead, this circuit is a one which uses 4 flip-flops but does not use any decoder, but what it will do is it will use only AND gates, but it can generate 8 timing signals. So, the 8 timing signals is not as low as 4, it is also not as high as 16, but the complexity of the extra control circuitry is minimum, in the sense that you don't need a decoder, you will need only 8 AND gates. We will see how this can be done. This is also called as the switch tail counter. Here what we do is we have 4 D flip-flops, basically a shift register, okay. But what we did in the normal one is we initialized 1 0 0 0 and then circulated this 1 through this register. Now what we do is we do not give the output of the last D register back to the 1. Instead, we take the complemented output of the last flip-flop and feed it to the first flip-flop. So here we call this as A, B, C, D flip-flop. The output of the A flip-flop, which is called as A, goes to the input of B. From B it goes to C, C it goes to D, but the output of D flip-flop, which will call with this flip-flop, which we do not connect E back to this D input. We, of course, because we have used a D symbol for a D flip-flop, we skip the alphabet D here. From C we will call it as E. So the output of the last flip-flop is not given, its complemented output is given. How will it work? Suppose we initialize all these flip-flops as 0 0 0 0. So what will get recirculated back? This bit flip-flop is set as 0, so E will be 0, but E bar will be 1. So it is the 1 that will go back here, okay. So as long as this flip-flop is 0, its complement value 1 is the one which will go back here. So if you have a 0 0 0 0, the next bit will be 1 0 0 0. And this is 0, so a 1 will go back here and this will again be rotated. So a 1, this 1 will come here. So a 1 will come here, this 1 will go here, and so on. So starting from 0 0 0 0, we will have a case of 1 0 0 0, then 1 1 0 0, then 1 1 0, then we will have 4 ones. Now, until we have a 0 here, a 1 is the one which is pushed, recirculated. But moment this flip-flop stores a 1, E will be 1 but E bar will be a 0, we will start circulating zeros. So from 1 1 1 1, the next sequence will be 0 1 1 1, then 0 0 1 1, 0 0 1, and then all zeros. So which is what is shown here. Starting from all 4 zeros, we'll have a 1, 000, 11, 00, 111, 0, all ones, then 0, 111, and 0, 111, 00, 11, 0001, and then all zeros. This is how it will keep circulating. So 8 unique combinations are possible using this switch tail configuration. But how do we now generate timing diagrams, timing signals? Each of these 8 unique count values have to be uniquely decoded, and we have to take it as a T signal. So there are 8 unique combinations. We can generate 8 T signals by appropriately decoding, so that only that T signal will be 1 when you are in a particular count. You don't need to do a full decoding. If we can actually write out a big expression for this, okay, that is A bar, B bar, C bar, E bar is the unique combination for this. Similarly here A, B, for the third one it is A, B, C bar, E bar, and so on. You don't need to use even such min-term like expression. A shorter expression itself will be okay. Such expression will be unique for basically we are doing a partial decoding, will be unique for this. If you look at this one, the first one, the A bar, E bar will be 1. Only A is equal to 0, E is equal to 0 only for this row, and no other row this condition holds good. Both A being 0, E being 0. So A bar, E bar can be used for that. The next row, 1 triple zeros, will have A equal to 1, B is equal to 0, only for this. So A B bar can be used to designate 2. For 3 it is B C bar. Then for the next one it is C E bar. Then for the all ones it is A E. A and E are both 1 only for this count, that is 1 1, that this combination 1 1 1 1. For the next one 0 triple 1 it is A bar B, and then B bar C, and then C bar E. So this, if you have an 2 input AND gate, 8 such things, each one can be used to generate 8 timing signals. So that is a Johnson counter. So we looked at how counters can be used to generate timing signals, and it can also be used to construct BCD counters. With that we will stop this lecture. Thank you.